So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
I'm trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
I blame it on industry. I blame it on my own hypocrisy. It's education and politicians. No one's willing to step up and speak.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the P.A.C.E radio show. My name is Al Graham, and we are coming to you live and real here on lifestyleradio.ca. The guests on the radio show are usually Canadian cannabis advocates, and during our show we like to talk to them about what they are doing to educate people to what they are doing to end cannabis prohibition. Tonight, Debbie, who is my joint host, has brought us a guest, and who has been a big voice in the medical cannabis community and gets involved in lots of things. But before we learn more, I'd like to have a little talk with Debbie. Debbie, are you there?
I am, Al. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. We're in a little bit of a weather storm, but I'm doing all right.
Right on. It's certainly been a pleasant day here in Nova Scotia weather-wise. We've just had a little bit of rain, nothing like what you guys have been experiencing.
I'm sure it's on the way.
I didn't hear that. Will it make it go away?
Yeah, maybe. Okay, I do have some good news though. I am a grandfather again.
Congratulations.
My son has had, and his partner, that'd be Adam and Sharon, have had a bouncing baby girl, 7 pounds, 4 ounces.
Oh, very nice.
Yes. So adds another one to the family, and we're growing all the time. Talking about growing, I'm sure we're going to get into that tonight. So.
Oh, no doubt. I have a feeling the word growing and plants, words growing and plants and patience will all be mentioned several times.
Yes. Well, there's been normally this time we do news, Debbie, and there's like 3 pretty big things that have happened just for today. So instead of us talking about news, how about we just introduce our guest? What do you think? And we'll have her involved in it.
I think that sounds like a tremendous plan, Al.
Okay.
Because I'm sure Laurie will have plenty to contribute as well.
That's right, exactly. So at this time, I'd like to welcome our guest, Laurie MacEachern of the Medical Cannabis Patients Alliance, to the P.A.C.E radio show. Laurie, you there?
I'm here. Good evening, folks. How you doing?
Good. Hey, I'm doing good. And yourself?
Not too bad. Now I'm home out of the stormy weather. I'm a lot better.
Yeah, I know. Hey, it's just one of those things. It's that time. It's almost the end of February, and you just don't know what we're going to get for weather. So.
Yeah, it's amazing. I came home and in an hour we had about 4. I think I drove through about 4 or 5 different weather systems.
Oh, wow. You must be in a non-fun weather area. So.
Yeah, it's really kind of weird here, but hey, listen, the plants grow beautifully in the summertime. That's all I care about.
That's all that matters. That's right. Well, Laurie, Debbie, I'll just let Debbie get started here with some questions and jump in along the way. I'm sure there's going to be lots for all of us to talk about. So.
Oh, no doubt, especially after the day that patients have had here in Canada and the week of meetings that Laurie's attended so far. I'm sure just on those 3 points alone we'll have plenty to talk about.
Yes.
So without further ado, Laurie, we'll put you right to work. On Monday, I know you had attended a public information session that was supposed to be clearing the myths, I believe, on cannabis, that was put on by the Canadian Centre for Substance Abuse. And I'm wondering if you'd like to tell our listeners about what the meeting was like, some of the people who were there, how you were received, and some of the myths of your own that you busted while you were there.
Yes, weirdly, I seem to have been the one busting the myths. It's
as
well,
opposed
yeah,
to perpetuating them, right?
Yeah, I was quite surprised actually to read the presentation. I went and accessed the handout ahead of time. Thanks to you folks down east, one of your acquaintances, I believe, attended the one in Halifax and was able to fill me in ahead of my attendance as to what to expect. And I'd already kind of breezed through. In advance of going, I kind of thought, oh, I'll look at the 97 pages they're going to hand out, and I'll have some kind of rebuttal. Well, oh gosh, I'd be there a week, so I couldn't do that. So yeah, I basically went and thought, I'll listen to what they have to say and decide whether or not I speak. They didn't bust a lot of myths. I'll make sure that I send you guys a link to that publication. It's a study that they published last year, and it's all about adolescents, quote unquote, and I'm quoting one of the physicians here, smoking pot. I was kind of taken aback at physicians actually interchanging the words cannabis, marijuana, and pot through the entire thing. They were clearly talking about smoking, you know. Basically, their concern seemed to be between the ages of 15 and 25. And, you know, the formative years, the younger age group being their biggest concern, I guess. I will say I was shocked that they actually talked about an endocannabinoid system. They talked about the importance of the endocannabinoid system, how it regulates all the other systems. They said that there are CB1 and CB2 receptors, and at that point spun it that the onslaught of these massive amounts of cannabinoids on these receptors is too much for a young brain to handle, and that's why that's what they think now is the problem with cannabis and adolescents. Smoking it. Okay, I'm going to keep saying smoking it because that's what the entire thing's about. They took quotes from teenagers. Every single quote had the word weed in it. And it was what I would say would be the outside to the norm of the comments from the teens. You know what I mean?
Cherry picking.
Yeah. Oh, very much so. Yeah. And I have to say one of the things one of our community went with me. I was really happy to have Stitch there with me because I don't know, at least every now and then I could lean over and go, oh my God. But she was able to video it also, so we were able to post it on Facebook so people could watch. I guess it was people giggling at the idea that cannabis could aid in cancer. Was the thing, I guess, that made me the most uncomfortable, or one of the most uncomfortable things. The other one is the statistic about driving. Because, speaking of cherry picking, they would say the statistic, I'm sure, is that the illicit drug involved most with fatal traffic accidents would be cannabis. I'm thinking, and how often was there not alcohol involved? Right? They don't say anything about the fact that the fatal accidents were cannabis and alcohol together or something like that. You know what I mean? Because I don't know if I've ever heard of a fatal accident involving nothing but cannabis.
They are very limited. I think the only one I really hear about is a situation that happened in the Ottawa area where they blame a 17-year-old for smoking cannabis and getting involved in an accident. That's the one I hear.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the one I hear the breach about. That was back in the 90s or something.
That made me cringe a little bit. But other than that, yeah, it was pretty much the rhetoric and how the dangers to the developing brain and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So,
just on a note,
it was a panel of four. Sorry.
Just a note on that driving. Just a note on that driving part of it. I'm going to be able to mention one, but when you can go every single day, where there's an alcohol death within the news, cannabis doesn't seem to be an issue.
Well, and regarding the impairment, thankfully, it was kind of cool. One of the people that got up to speak and have a question/comment was a Dr. George Neville, who has testified in front of standing committees in Parliament previously. Apparently, he was a teacher or professor to two of the panel members. The panel was 4 doctors from CCSA, and the entire front row, I was told, they told us was their board of directors. So this Dr. Neville got up and spoke to the quote-unquote impaired driving issue, and made it very clear that someone with no experience with cannabis who uses cannabis or smokes cannabis and then goes to drive would be considered to be impaired, whereas someone like you or I who uses it constantly in large amounts for a medical purpose, the level of impairment is negligible. Like it's he made a very good point that it's not the same world, that it's the impairment, not the level of cannabinoids that has to be addressed, right? Mm-hmm. So I was thankful that he was there to address that. Now, at the end of the presentation, they had a question and answer period, or question comments, and someone got up and asked a few questions, and they answered them, and a lot of I think there was only one, and at that point there were 2 microphones standing empty with nobody standing at them, nobody lined up, nobody getting up. And one of the microphones was like 1.5 feet from my knee, so I thought, well, hell. And I got up and started talking and said, well, I guess I'll take this opportunity to, not so much a question, but I will comment and thank you for opening the discussion, is what I said. And made it very clear who I was and why I was there and, what I've been able to do. It's one of those things where if I get up and talk and I'm kind of flying off the cuff, I didn't really know what it was I wanted to say. I think I was clearly talking mostly about medicine, but what happened was it made them reiterate repeatedly, we are only talking about adolescents smoking pot, quote unquote. Right? So they made sure through my ramblings, they were forced to kind of reiterate to the audience, like, we're not talking about everybody all the time. It's only adolescents. It's only the developing of mind. It's only smoking.
So they were just focused in on very narrow focus of the whole thing there.
Yes, it was. I felt so. In all honesty, I afterwards I saw somebody post something about the top 10 things that the CCSA is concerned with, and cannabis was number 10 on the list, which I find, like, the whole time I kept leaning over to Stitch going, damn, I wish they'd do something like this about alcohol. And then I see the list and alcohol is number 1 and cannabis is number 10, and you're wasting all this time and money and resources touring the country making a big deal about telling everybody about the dangers of cannabis on smoking cannabis in adolescence, when there's clearly much, 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 much bigger issues that need addressing. And I will say that the second time I got up to speak, Now, once I got up and did my little bit and I finally shut up and sat down, other people then started coming up and asking questions, making comments, and it was a lot of youth counselors or people working at Algonquin College, which was like right in the neighborhood of where we were. And at one point, someone got up and asked the panel of physicians the difference between smoking and other delivery methods, and all 4 doctors looked at each other like in silence. Not a word. And at that point, I kind of put my hand up and went, I can speak to that if you'd like. And they actually said yes. So I got up to the microphone and explained the difference between smoking and other delivery methods. I explained that there is not 2 cannabinoids, but actually found over 60 cannabinoids. And when you add the flavonoids and terpenoids, it comes to over 100 active components in the plant. And that each one of them is activated and evaporated at a different temperature. And therefore, through vaporization and changing the temperature, you can get activation and evaporation of different cannabinoids to affect different results. And like, there was 220 people in the audience. I was educating about delivery methods and cannabinoids, and I don't know. I'm still shocked.
It sounds like you went from a position of a person who they really didn't want to hear from to a person who all of a sudden you had the ears and the eyes of 200 and some odd people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's a good thing. A very good thing. So, okay. We're pretty close to the break time here now. So, I guess maybe we should just go for break. And we seem to have a bit of a problem with Debbie. We can't hear her, so maybe we can get that solved while we're away. So we'll go for break now, and then we'll come back. So, as usual, as everybody likes to know, we highlight a Canadian cannabis band while we go in and out of our breaks. And tonight that will be the Hicks, and we're going to use their song "Roll Another Joint," which I'm sure a lot of people did today. And when we return, Debbie and I will continue our talk with Laurie MacEachern of the Medical Cannabis Patients Alliance. This is the P.A.C.E Radio Show on lifestyleradio.ca. This is the P.A.C.E Radio.
Roll a joint, take a toke, pass it down the line. Take a puff of that sticky stuff, it's bound to blow your mind.
The following is a public service announcement from the Canadian Medical Cannabis Partners Society. The Canadian Medical Cannabis Partners Society is a non-profit organization dedicated to ensuring improved access to therapeutic cannabis and cannabis byproducts in Canada. With a federal government that has committed to legalizing cannabis, we feel it is our duty to ensure that the medicinal use of cannabis doesn't get lost in the process and that there are clear distinctions made between the medicinal and recreational use of cannabis. It is our mission to ensure that government regulation doesn't get in the way of a sick, disabled, or terminally ill person's right to use or produce this amazing natural health product. If you would like to get involved, you can contact us on the internet www.canadiantherapeuticcannabispartners.com, on Facebook, see MCP Society, or search Canadian Medical Cannabis Partners.
This is Al Graham of the P.A.C.E Radio Show. Are you keeping pace, as in keeping people advocating cannabis education? If you're not, and you're a cannabis consumer, then why not? Others are working hard every day to help educate people about cannabis so you can enjoy your daily 420. Get involved and speak out. Be loud and proud so that you can keep pace. Tune into the P.A.C.E Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to hear about people advocating cannabis education here on lifestyleradio.ca.
Growing your own vegetables, flowers, or even medicinal plants can be a challenge without the right equipment and proper know-how. At BMA Hydroponics, not only are they your urban horticultural experts and suppliers, but their staff holds the customer's needs paramount to making a sale. Family-owned with decades of experience and knowledge, they offer free advice in person, by phone, or email. BMA Hydroponics wants to ensure you have the advice you need, which is why you'll find tips and tricks on different ways to grow, like wick, ebb and flow, drip, or aeroponic system, as well as other helpful links at bmahydroponics.com. If you can't find what you're looking for, just let them know, and they'll do everything they can to get what you're looking for. At BMA Hydroponics, each staff member also possesses a federal exemptee MMAR license, making their strong suit empathy, experience, and dedication to their customers. Because when you know how to grow, you'll have results that make you proud. BMA Hydroponics in Belleville, Ontario. Visit bmahydroponics.com.
BMA offers cannabinoid testing, so if you want to prove you've got good medicine, head to BMA Hydroponics and prove it.
Fatties when I'm grooving, roaches when I'm dry, killers when I'm hard up, and sweet buds when I...
Hello and welcome. You're listening to the P.A.C.E radio show live here at lifestyleradio.ca, or you can find us at other audio outlets such as Spreaker, Mixcloud, TuneIn Radio, plus other social media outlets. Are you a grassroots advocate or a person looking for a place where you can find some Canadian cannabis news along with grassroots advocacy? If you are, then I'd like to suggest that you go to pace-online.ca and check out Grassroots Advocate by people advocating cannabis education. Grassroots Advocate is a free downloadable magazine, or one that you can print at our or pick up and print at our local supporting businesses. It's full of Canadian cannabis news. It's got recipes, a medical article, plus regional information, which includes a list of Ontario vapor lounges and where patients can find a signing clinic or a compassion center. If this sounds like something that you're looking for, then head over to pace-online.ca to get your free subscription to Grassroots Advocate. Tonight on the P.A.C.E radio show, I'm joined by our guest, Laurie MacEachern of the Medical Cannabis Patients Alliance, and my joint host, Debbie Stultz-Giffin, and I hope we've got her back in here. Debbie, are you with us?
I hope so.
Ah, great, I can hear you. Good.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I didn't touch anything until I realized I wasn't being heard, and then I was touching everything. Pulling plugs and hitting buttons and something.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
So that's awesome.
I thought, geez, Deb's being awful quiet, and all of a sudden I see the message. Oh, no. So we got that solved. I'm glad you're back, and we'll let you get rolling again.
Thank you, and congratulations on the new publication, Al. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you very much.
With all the excitement today, I haven't had a chance to check it out, but I certainly will be sure to.
Okay, well, I've got it out to some of the locations already, and if we hadn't gotten a snowstorm and rain today, it would have been out in some more of our locations. So far, so good. From the businesses we've dealt with, everybody is supportive of it. And they're really happy to see the regional information that they can direct patients and other people to. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, the Canadian Centre for Substance Abuse meeting certainly sounds like it was an interesting one for you, Laurie.
It was, for sure, yeah.
My understanding was that they brought no new research to the table, that this was just a rehash of old research, and they wrote a report about it, basically. And for our listeners who aren't aware, it was due to, what was it, 11 point... I can't remember, but somewhere between $11 and $12 million dedicated by the previous Conservative government to ferret out this information about cannabis in the young brain. So certainly based on the previous Conservative government's ideology, I'm sure they're hard-pressed to separate fact from fiction.
Well, I have to say that that's what I believed going into it, is that this is just like a trickle-down effect from the former government, because it's is it the National Institute of Health or something like that we have here, or the Health Research Foundation or something like that, something to do with the government, some arm of the government. I just don't have the link in front of me, and if I start clicking around, I might lose you, so I won't do that.
Don't do that. One of us lost tonight's enough. Thank you.
Exactly.
I remember. I remember when it was announced this money going to the Canadian Centre for Substance Abuse to do this supposed research, doing some research on them, and they do have the audacity to claim to be an arm's length organization from our government, yet you go on the site and research, their budget is directly coming from Health Canada, so we need an arm's length? They're more like the armpit of the government in my mind. You know, if you want to go for a part of the anatomy that's got something to do with an arm, they're much closer to the body of the government itself. And in fact, the Deputy Minister of Health and Wellness and Deputy Minister of Public Safety are all a part of this board, are they not?
Of the one going forward for legalization, yes.
The Canadian Centre for Substance Abuse. Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
The Canadian Centre for Substance Abuse. They're part
of the board.
The report was just a rehashing of old studies, pretty much. Yeah, exactly what you said. All the stuff they've been saying all along, and then they just put it in a pretty package.
Yeah, pretty much, and the government wasted $11 million making it happen, while, as you pointed out in the first section of this show, I mean, look at all the harms of alcohol. Why
and I have to say, one of the other things that I was really upset about is they were interchanging the words addiction and dependence, like they were the same thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? When they were speaking, they would start talking about addiction, then they'd end up saying dependence. And I'm picking out the differentiation between the two things, because although I'm not addicted to cannabis, I am goddamn dependent on it. And,
for sure,
you know,
but I mean, you have insulin-dependent diabetics. You
right.
know, they're not addicted to insulin. It's the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, the interchanging of those two words really upset me. I feel they have to be separated. Oh, here's a takeaway that I had not heard before. They're looking at developing a pharmaceutical that will address cannabis dependence.
I can't wait to
read
on that.
Yep.
What next?
Other than the giggling at the cancer thing and something else, that was the other thing that I went away with, that we just couldn't believe that they're going to develop a pharmaceutical to address cannabis dependence.
That's sad.
Yeah, here, let's
sad.
turn it, put it in
sad.
reverse and go backwards, right?
That's right.
So, yeah.
You don't need an addictive pill for that.
No.
No.
And
well,
one of the board members, the chair of the board, or the moderator of the board on Monday, was also the person speaking at the Liberal Senate Forum today on behalf of CCSA.
Interesting. That's where I was about to steer this conversation, was toward today's meeting and as well today's news. So if you'd like to speak briefly on the meeting today with the Liberal Senate.
Sure.
And your experiences
today,
and your experience prior to the meeting as well, because you did speak with Eglinton's assistant, as I recall.
Yes, I did. When I sent in my request to attend, I was quite surprised. Like 20 minutes later, I got one back going, absolutely, here's what you need to know. And I sent the last thing he said was, or the last item that I needed to know was that they had an overwhelming response. They weren't expecting it. And there was only a limited time for questions and comments, and they weren't sure how much time or how many people would have an opportunity to say anything. So I basically, and then it said, if you have any further questions, let me know. So I responded and I said, thank you very much for the inclusion. The community will be very happy to know that they have some representation there. And in advance, like in reference to your limited question comment time, I just want you to, I said that our organization, if we don't have a chance to speak, would like, the senators to understand that we feel it's important for the sick people to be at the top of the list of stakeholders going forward rather than living at the bottom where we have so far. And that our solution basically is an inclusive program that's harmonized and pulls everybody into the framework that has existed in some form or another in the last 20 years. And that here's a link to it and please pass it on. And then I got an email back going, can I call you? And I said, sure. And he phoned up. They were overwhelmed and surprised at the response. They were confused, maybe is the word I want to use, at the anger that, and I don't know what other word to use for it. So I guess they wanted to understand why so many people were mad, and so I basically said, well, those of us who need it as medicine feel like we're being thrown under the bus, like we're being steamrolled over on the way to legalization for everybody, and we don't have a program that works. And, we haven't had yet. I said, 5 years ago we started coming to, try to affect change, and I said, some people 5 years ago that were off pharmaceuticals are back on them today, and I said that's the wrong way to be going.
Well, and as well, how many of those folks have passed on in the meantime because of inaccessibility to the medicine that they need?
Laurie, you there? Debbie?
I'm here.
You're there. I think we've lost. Maybe we've lost Laurie.
I think
we got gremlins tonight.
Evil forces at work all over the place, eh? Wow.
Hey, they happen, They just happen. There's nothing we can do there. So.
Well, for sure. But in listening to Laurie speak about the senators being unaware of the patient's predicament, I'm wondering what they're thinking tonight after this court decision today, because surely none of them have missed the news. It's been plastered everywhere.
Oh, it sure has. It's showing up everywhere in the news, and it was breaking news on CBC and other networks. It's been all over social media. It's everywhere, and this Liberal Senate thing that was in discussion today. There was a lot of people involved. I know of a lady, actually. A former guest on the show by the name of Linda Houghton, who wrote and requested to be involved in the discussion, and she received a letter back telling her that there was just an overwhelming request for people to be able to speak, that they had to turn some people down. And I saw posted at their website that they were getting to the point of having to explain that they weren't the ones that were there to make the laws and the rules and stuff. They just wanted people's opinions on things.
Well, for sure, and it's certainly nice to see the process starting on that note. I understand that they expanded their list of speakers. Initially, everyone that was speaking certainly seemed of a more prohibitionist, bringing more of a prohibitionist slant to this meeting. But my understanding, it opened up quite nicely. There was, I read where Judith Renaud from Educators for Sensible Drug Policy was supposed to be in attendance, and I'd be awfully surprised if she didn't make a statement or presentation of some sort to the group.
I know that I saw a tweet from Judith with a picture of her looking at Bill Blair and some other people. So she was there, most definitely. I know she was there.
Nice. Yeah. I also saw somewhere where I believe Eugene Oscapella was supposed to be in attendance, and I'm sure he would have. Well, I'm confident he would have brought a more sensible tone to the whole meeting as well.
He was present. He was a late addition to it, and I can tell you that he did speak as well as he always does when it comes to the cannabis issue, and it was great to see him added.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I'm just actually gonna see. I'm just looking to see if I can find some actual tweets that came out of there that were directed to him, because I know it was pretty. They were pretty out there, pretty quick with them and stuff like that. Like Craig Jones, he was on there. He was there talking as well. So.
Nice. I didn't have much of a chance this morning to follow that.
Oh yeah, well yeah, it actually. They say that there's going to be the auto is going to be released tomorrow. Is what it said. As far as what I had heard earlier on, that's when the auto will be released. Yeah, there's some interesting tweets there. If I'm just trying to see what the Liberal senator's address is, and for people to go there and see them. Anybody that's on Twitter, basically it's at Lib Senate. If you go there, you can be able to see all their tweets from that forum today. There's some good ones in there. There's some that you question as well, but. Yeah.
Well, of course, considering the high presence of law enforcement amongst the panel and speakers, and Bill Blair is the head of the committee.
Correct. Yes, he is. Yeah, that's right. So, okay, well, Debbie, we're going to go for a break, and hopefully we can solve the issue that we're having here with our guests. If we can get the gremlins out of the out of the system, and we'll get it back on. So we'll go for the break. And as I mentioned earlier, our featured band for tonight is the Hicks, a West Coast band, and their song Roll Another Joint. And when we return, Debbie and I will hopefully continue the conversation with Laurie MacEachern of the Medical Cannabis Patients Alliance. You're listening to the P.A.C.E Radio Show here at lifestyleradio.ca.
Some old hot knives, but if you're just a rookie, you can burn yourself alive. Roll a joint, take a toke and pass it down the line. Take a puff of that sticky stuff that's bound to blow your mind.
Growing your own vegetables, flowers, or even medicinal plants can be a challenge without the right equipment and proper know-how. At BMA Hydroponics, not only are they your urban horticultural experts and suppliers, but their staff holds the customer's needs paramount to making a sale. Family-owned with decades of experience and knowledge, they offer free advice in person, by phone, or email. BMA Hydroponics wants to ensure you have the advice you need, which is why you'll find tips and tricks on different ways to grow, like wick, ebb and flow, drip, or aeroponic system, as well as other helpful links at bmahydroponics.com. If you can't find what you're looking for, just let them know, and they'll do everything they can to get what you're looking for. At BMA Hydroponics, each staff member also possesses a federal exemptee MMAR license, making their strong suit empathy, experience, and dedication to their customers. Because when you know how to grow, you'll have results that make you proud. BMA Hydroponics in Belleville, Ontario. Visit bmahydroponics.com.
BMA offers cannabinoid testing, so if you want to prove you've got good medicine, head to BMA Hydroponics and prove it.
The following is a public service announcement from the Canadian Medical Cannabis Partners Society. The Canadian Medical Cannabis Partners Society is a non-profit organization dedicated to ensuring improved access to therapeutic cannabis and cannabis byproducts in Canada. With a federal government that has committed to legalizing cannabis, we feel it is our duty to ensure that the medicinal use of cannabis doesn't get lost in the process and that there are clear distinctions made between the medicinal and recreational use of cannabis. It is our mission to ensure that government regulation doesn't get in the way of a sick, disabled, or terminally ill person's right to use or produce this amazing natural health product. If you would like to get involved, you can contact us on the internet, www.canadiantherapeuticCannabisPartners.com, on Facebook, CMCP Society, or search Canadian Medical Cannabis Partners.
Tune into the P.A.C.E radio show and catch Kim Cooper, Debbie Stultz-Giffin, or Alison Murden, along with myself, Al Graham, as we talk to Canadian and international cannabis advocates who are working hard to help patients and to end cannabis prohibition. Catch us live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here at lifestyleradio.ca.
Roll a joint, take a token, pass it down the line. Take a puff of that sticky stuff, it's bound to blow your mind.
Welcome back, and thanks for tuning into the P.A.C.E radio show. We are being broadcasted live at lifestyleradio.ca. Plus, you can find us at Shoutcast, YouTube, and other social media. Tonight, we featured the West Coast band The Hicks and their song Roll Another Joint. These guys have quite a few cannabis-related songs and have been described as the Cheech and Chong of country music. If you enjoyed tonight's song, you can find it and more on YouTube. That's where I usually find the songs. Like I said earlier, with all of today's news, I'm sure a lot of us were rolling extra joints. So tonight on the P.A.C.E radio show, we are joined by our guest Laurie MacEachern of the Medical Cannabis Patients Alliance and my joint host Debbie Stultz-Giffin, who is with the Maritimers United for medical marijuana. And I believe that commercial break solved our problem. And we have Laurie back. Right, Laurie?
Yes, I'm here by phone now.
By phone. Hey, phone, internet, or Hangout, Skype, whatever. It doesn't matter to us as long as we got you to talk to.
Well, it's that hillbilly Wi-Fi I got here in a nice storm. We get disconnected.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how much you heard there. I was talking about Art Eggleton's legislative assistant and so on. Basically I made sure that they all had a copy of everything that we were concerned about, that we wanted to get our point across in case there wasn't time to speak today. I have to say, I am guardedly very hopeful because I was really impressed with the language I heard. Everybody seems to be on the same page. Everybody was more concerned about evidence-based policy, science, fact. I was quite surprised, and almost everybody was in favor. I don't know if anybody was against home gardening. So I was kind of pleasantly surprised.
Well, certainly in light of today's court decision in favor of Patients Gardens, it's all tying in quite nicely.
Very nicely, yes. That was the other thing I was impressed with, that repeatedly different people spoke to the need to, they kept saying, like, the world is watching. We have to make this right. We have to be an example for the world. And if they go forward with that in mind and do seriously develop evidence-based policy and best practices and so on, and allow people the freedom to care for themselves if they're able, then, you know, I don't know. That sounds pretty close to what we've been asking for. That's scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it is. The only thing that makes me uncomfortable are the words strictly regulate. And
right. Well, they were talking about because they're very clear about the fact that they have no idea, no clue what the picture's going to look like when they're done. That everybody that was at the table today, I'll say, okay, so today we had Bill Blair. I met Bill Blair, by the way. He came over and practically came over and introduced himself. I was kind of surprised. Shook his hand, introduced myself, told him who I was. He thanked me for attending, and then the press saw him and just swarmed him and kind of almost knocked me back on my chair. And yeah, I was speaking to a senator from Alberta who was extremely interested. It was very funny. What he said was, we're here to talk about legalization. It's about time. We want to get this done as fast as possible, is what he said. Okay. And I spoke to him. I explained who I was and our situation, and he was very interested. I said, and I'm hoping I can come and talk to you in the near future about how to do this right going forward. And he just pulled out his card and handed it to me and said, give you a call. So that was really cool. And we had been discussing, we had been talking, and then somebody else had come over and said hello, and he got taken off in another direction, and I just went back to my chair. And I was really shocked. He came back over to me and said, we weren't done. And, you know, it's like, cool. You really want to hear more?
Wonderful.
Wonderful, exactly.
Yeah, I was explaining about my garden, and I don't know, anybody who has had a garden, you start joking up when you talk about it, you know? And I think he saw that. And I have every intention of inviting him right here to tour it when it's nice and fragrant in the summer. Believe me.
And all of this sort of segues quite nicely into the recent hat that you've begun to wear on Parliament Hill, so to speak.
Yes, I'm going to be going and lobbying for positive change and make sure that they don't forget about us and chuck us under that big fat red carpet up there and forget about us. Sorry?
In using the word lobbying, you're officially registered as a lobbyist on the Hill. Are you not?
I haven't registered yet. The thing, I intend to register in association with a number of not-for-profit patient alliances, specifically because now I don't have to register as long as I'm not paid anything other than like my expenses. But I feel that in order for everybody to know that I'm going to be there, I'm going to be present, and I'm going to be representing the folks who need the representation. I'm going to make sure I do get registered, and however many organizations associate with the registration, it goes in a registry, and it is printed in the lobby monitor, and, you know, They do. There is a publication under the Hill Times called the Lobby Monitor, and they do publicize when people are lobbying. Now, mind you, lobbying in Ottawa usually consists of a whole bunch of people getting a whole bunch of money together and paying somebody to lobbying, paying somebody to put on a reception and invite senators and other, parliamentarians and feed them well and wine them well. And we can't afford to do any of that. So our lobbying is going to look very different. I'm going to be there not because somebody's putting money in my pocket, but because my friggin' life depends on it. And I intend to make every single one of those people understand that that's why I'm there, and it's going to set me apart from everybody else that's there. And
I think it's important for them to have that face, that voice.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
I think it's important for the parliamentarians to have a face of a patient representing patients, coming and sitting and talking to them across the desk.
I seriously, I do think so, because that was one of the points that I made with Stitch the other day when we were at the CSA event. At one point I leaned over and I said, do you think any one of these doctors have ever met anybody like me? And she said, no, probably not. Because, and I guess that's one of the reasons I wanted to make sure that I made very well clear whether it was about adolescents smoking pot or not, that they're about addiction. I've gotten over so many addictions with cannabis. I don't drink, I don't smoke cigarettes anymore, I take no pharmaceuticals, no pressed pill of any sort, you know what I mean? And I needed them to understand that, what do I want to say? They're making such a fuss about the least of their worries, I guess is what I want to say. You know what I mean?
Oh, hugely. Hugely.
And they should be much more concerned with all the other things that are killing our kids and their family members than cannabis. And that was the other thing too, is I made an acquaintance over the last few days, is the head of the Canadian Medicinal Cannabis Industry Association. So I made it known who I was and, our position, and that we recognize the need for standardized and quality medicine, but that being said, people like me are never, ever, ever, ever going to be able to use your clients. That's what I said. But just so they know where I'm coming from when I start talking, I've never been one to mince words, I guess. And one of the, I at one point today, I was right towards the end, I was brought to tears. Judith Renaud from the Educators for Sensible Drug Policy was there, and I've been familiar with Judith for, the 5 years that I've been busy doing this, I guess. And it was really awesome to be able to meet her and hear her speak today. And she spoke to teachers in cannabis, teachers in an intervention role. And I will say I had absolutely no idea that teachers could be fired if they talked to their students about drugs. Did you know that?
Yeah. Really?
Apparently, since the law enforcement took over in the drug education sessions, teachers were no longer supposed to talk to their students about any sort of drug. So she made a very moving, I don't want to call it a speech, she made a very moving presentation where she had quotes from teachers besides herself about what they felt they were being, basically that they felt that they had their hands tied, they were unable to do the things that they were taught to do, that they were skilled to do, that they love to do because it crosses this line. And that was one of the things that I'm happy about going forward, is that it was very clear from the language that came out of that cannabis is being looked at as a health issue, not a criminal issue from here on out.
That's encouraging.
Yes, yeah. And that the chief of police, Canadian Chiefs of Police Association, is it? The fellow from, isn't that awful? I don't have it in. Even if I did have it in front of me, I'm sitting here in the dark, I wouldn't be able to read it. Yeah, so he made it very clear. He said with the legalization, it's not going to be done like that anymore. It's going to be a health issue. We're going to be looking at it as a health issue, not as a policing issue from here on. So, and I have to say, more than 2 senators addressed the amnesty issue.
What did they think about the amnesty part of it all?
They're basically asking how fast they can do it.
I think it'd be done in just pretty quickly, I think. Really.
Well, basically the short answer was they can't examine. They answered that they couldn't examine amnesty until the actual legalization happened. At which point Eugene Oscapella thought that they could through the prosecution services, but that's just he threw that out there, right? Yeah. So there were a couple of people from CCSA. There was Bill Blair. There was a fellow from CAMH. There was Eugene Oscapella and a whole bunch of senators, and and the head of the police, Chiefs of Police Association. So it was all in all quite a interesting day. Everybody, they did mention a couple of times that they were waiting for the Allard decision. And to close the show, yay!
We haven't even got to that part yet.
Yeah. So I don't know. What I basically saw, I got a couple of messages. It was really hilarious. I got 3 quick texts. It was, we won, patients can grow, and the third one said, canopy growth, stocks are dropping.
Well,
so
what do you like? I'm happy with the decision, but I've also got some points that I was disappointed. I'm sure some of the people were disappointed that those people that are in the gray area are still in the gray area. I'm sure that they were hoping that they would get an answer today, and I'm sure some of the others. Right. The moving situation, patients aren't allowed to move, so we're being forced to stay at our homes. Patients who have been forced to move or have had to move, they've had to lose their licenses, so on and so forth. That stuff wasn't addressed, but at least I look at it as they got a 6-month light that way down there, as long as the government doesn't appeal it.
Well, and I think it's pretty clear that I'm hoping that what's going to happen is during those 6 months they're going to take that opportunity to move towards an integrated type of program that they can implement the medicinal first and then bring the recreational in later. You know what I mean? Because after the forum today, they made it very clear. Bill Blair said repeatedly over and over and over again, this is our mandate. We are moving ahead with this. We are doing this as fast as possible, but we can't move quickly because we want to do it right. But if I'm hoping that the decision out west today will blend into that, because what it was is that the MMPR is unconstitutional, of no force and effect. They have 6 months to fix it, and that the injunction holds true until the court deems otherwise, which I guess will be whenever it's fixed. So I'm hoping it's going to roll into this legalization thing, that because the integration of the medicinal and recreational was a point that was hit many, many times today in the forum. So, like I said, it would give them an opportunity to then make this the first phase and then move on to the stuff that everybody else wants to deal with later,
It's well, I like the fact that it holds our right to show that we are legally a right to grow our cannabis for our medicinal purposes and stuff like that. And look at it as that under a new medical, because as you said, it makes it unconstitutional, the MMPR, but under a new system, I look at it as that they have to allow growing.
I didn't hear anybody today in the room out of that entire group of people. Actually, the CCSA, in their presentation, they spoke to personal gardens. I didn't hear anybody that like the one thing that was said was something about how to regulate them, and they said, well, you can brew your own wine at home, and that was one funny thing with the senator. When I said about that, and he goes, well, you can't do that with tobacco. I said, actually, in Ontario, it is legal to be able to produce and store up to, I believe, 15 kilograms of tobacco a year.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
And he was shocked that I didn't know that, right? Well, that's it. And after I said that, was when I said, I'm going to be coming and lobbying, and I'd be really excited to be able to give you a call and come and have an appointment. And just pulled out his card and handed it over. It's like, dude, you know what you're in for.
Yeah. Before we go here, Laurie, I just want Debbie to speak to today's Allard decision. Debbie?
Yes.
Debbie, you got some thoughts on that?
Well, I do. I'm certainly delighted with the outcome that it looks like a new program would certainly have to allow for growing for all patients, not just the 20,000 or however many of us there were that were grandfathered into the program through this injunction in the first place. I feel certainly sad for those patients that are forced to wait an additional 6 months, knowing what many patients here in Nova Scotia who fell in that gray area before have gone through. I'm sure some of our listeners would remember seeing the story about Bobby Lee Dillman in hit national media, how he was raided and charged for plants had fallen in the gray area, and then a month and a half later we get to do a press release again because guess what? The charges were dismissed. It wasn't in the interest of the public, according to Public Prosecution of Canada, to proceed with it. And we've seen that happen here in Nova Scotia through our court support initiative many times. Patients' lives turned upside down, health repercussions from what's happening with the cops coming in, patients and their spouses left with PTSD because of these raids and busts, and you get to court, charges have been dismissed. And most recently I've been to an RCMP station with one of the patients who's endeavoring to get his medication back, and he looked at this gentleman's pink slip and went, well, look at the dates. Look at the dates. There's nothing here that's valid as a date. He didn't have a clue what end was up as far as patients and the previous program and who's covered and who isn't is concerned. Right. And I'm just concerned that we're going to be left with another 6 months of all of that again.
I totally get you, and that's one of the things. No matter how many positives I heard today, it's going to take so long for them to happen.
Yeah,
but they've only been given 6 months.
Well, this is it, and the moratorium idea did arise a number of times today. And the position was that as long as the law is on the books, it's enforceable, like we have to enforce it. Now, I felt like if I had been one of those situations where I could just stand up and go, but you have been choosing not to in many situations for a number of years. Mm-hmm. And basically, let's all recognize that that's the only thing the gray area has been, is the law enforcement just not bothering, right? There really is no real gray area. There never has been.
I hope after today's decision that it leaves these people that Debbie are describing, these patients that are being arrested, being that it's a right, but then that police officer who's doing the arrest obviously didn't know about expired dates. Don't mean anything when it comes to the injunction. Like as far as certain, everybody's paperwork is expired right now, other than being under the injunction.
He was the head of the detachment.
Oh, and
I thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting today that they actually spoke to that whatever it is they do, they're going to have a very good information session so people understand the situation.
I hear you. I spent more time today fielding calls, email messages through Facebook. What does this?
Text messages. Patient. I had a text message from an MMPR patient, and they were wondering whether they could start growing now because of that decision.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be so confusing for people. It's back to something that just occurred to me. The person from CMCIA was saying, I believe, I'm not sure if it must have been the senator. She was saying about the inspections and how they have like surprise pop inspections like every month, but they don't even know when they're coming. And I just looked at her and I went, every one of them. She goes, every one of them. I said, isn't that wild? I waited 10 years for an inspection.
That was the inspection.
I mean, what the story? Sorry.
The inspections was something that came up during John Conroy's interview or meeting with the press there. Somebody asked, one of the reporters asked about, are you concerned about the costs and system that would have to be put into place in order to verify patients' gardens and stuff like that? And John commented, which is true, that there already are systems in place in municipalities and stuff like that, where a licensed electrician has to come in and do some, there's inspections. It doesn't matter whether it's, if it's heavy work, it needs to be inspected. If you have some plumbing done, there's usually permits that are issued, and that can be all inspected that way.
Well,
I have to say, Health Canada at one point, I think they almost said that if anybody was doing something outside the MMAR, they had nothing they could do about it. Bullshit. They should have read the MMA program, because it said right in the regulations quite clearly what they were supposed to do if somebody reported somebody, or if somebody had a complaint about something. Pardon me. They were supposed to send an inspection or an inspector, and if they were outside the bounds of the authorization, they were supposed to notify the police. How? I know that. I read that. I can see that. And they just sat there going, oh, we can't do anything.
Mm-hmm. They don't know them. Deb, were you going to say something there?
Well, interestingly enough, I believe that Oregon has an inspection system in place for medical cannabis patients there, and they're charged a sliding fee scale according to how much they make, and that fee in turn pays for these inspectors to come and inspect. And it's my understanding that they're more than bean counters, which was basically the requirement that Health Canada would have had for their inspectors, the capability to go in and count plants, right, and write a number on a piece of paper kind of thing.
The only people I ever heard had anything checked, it was RCMP showed up to check.
Yeah, and it was to count plants, not worry whether it was safe or anything. They just count plants. Yeah.
Right.
And the inspectors would have been Health Canada's regular inspectors who were all pharmaceutical based. They do inspections in drug companies and pharmacies and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it wasn't a matter of hiring people especially to come and inspect patients' home gardens.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think it was part of the Health Canada. Yeah, there's 16 inspectors across the country or whatever they had.
Do you, on the Allard case, do either one of you have any thoughts that maybe that the government will appeal this?
No, I don't think so.
No, you don't think so, Dad?
I'd be surprised.
Yeah,
I'd be very surprised.
Even with this court decision, the judge is the prosecution are forced to pay the court costs.
Yes, I saw that.
That speaks volumes to me. Certainly, the current state of the Liberal government and the comments that Laurie made in particular about the meeting she's attended in the last couple of days speaks volumes to me as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that Trudeau is on record saying that he thought that patients should have gardens.
Yeah, he is on record on that. And
that came up multiple times today,
yeah. And even in the Resolution 117 by the BC Liberals, that's in there as well, where they state that they realize that they'll never stop people from growing in their own houses, and that they're going to have to allow it. So, and even these court decisions today even enforces that even more.
Well, I have to say, during the sorry.
Go ahead, Deb.
That's okay. The other thing I really, really loved about today's court decision was how dismissive Justice Phellan was of the prosecutor's witnesses.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
John
still have to read that. I haven't been home very long.
Yeah, John.
I doubt they'll ever be called upon to be a witness anywhere in court again.
Probably not. It's almost basically
that ended that illustrious career.
Yeah.
Wow.
And for them to try to use evidence that's based on large grow-up rates and stuff like that, and try to reflect that to a medical person, it's so wrong. And I'm so glad that the court recognized it. That those witnesses weren't credible at all.
I can't wait to read the ruling, because actually that was one of the things that I felt was standing out, was that they were testifying to belief and hearsay rather than stuff they actually knew. You know what I mean?
Yep. Stigma, and all this believing their own crap that they spread.
Yeah.
And trying to use it as evidence. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was
what an interesting few days.
It will be. And it's great to see the coverage that's been going on within the media. The conversation is going, and it's going to be ongoing, and it's good that there are people speaking out. And when people aren't being allowed to speak out, sort of like people looked at this Liberal Senate thing where they just looked at the list of the witnesses and they're going, what the, because the people, where was the advocate? Where was the people that have been fighting this for the last 20 years? It was people who weren't involved in any of that. So it was good to see where they allowed Eugene to get in, and people were allowed to get some input in it, like yourself. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. Some of the people asking questions. Judith Renault, as I said, from Educators for Sensible Drug Policy. Boris.
Yeah, I saw Boris.
Boris MRS was there. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. I believe he's the head of Normal.
Oh, Craig Jones.
Yep. Yeah, he was there.
Yep. He was there. He's with the Society. Howard Johnson. Go ahead.
So it was a good cross section of questions. It was about both industry. It was about industry legalization and medicinal. I wasn't disappointed. I didn't get up to make a point because I'd already made mine, kind of, and there was very little spoken. There was very little I could have said that wasn't already said.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I want to say. I was extremely glad to have been able to educate the people on Monday.
Well,
because that shocked me that they just had no idea.
Yeah. Well, I can just imagine the news tomorrow. In the papers, will have all this stuff will be covered. The forum there, the Allard Case, these pharmacy companies, so on and so forth. So it's good. It's good. I like it. I like the discussion is there. So
yes, I was very, very, very happy with the open. It was a very open forum. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Deb, you got anything else you want to ask Laurie about any of the stuff that's happened today, or shall we just? We've gone a little bit over time here, so we're getting just a tad. We're getting the thumbs up, so we're okay. It's been it's been a very important day. There's been lots of stuff, and there's lots of stuff to cover, and there's no way you can cover it all in an hour, right?
Well, yeah, we've been waiting how long for this decision? Almost a couple years now, right?
And I'm sure, Laurie, you'll be covering it again on Friday with the 420 radio show. With the 420 radio show.
Yeah, we'll be discussing it again Friday, and hopefully between now and then I'll have the opportunity to send a couple of emails off and make a few appointments for the weeks coming up and see how it goes. Make sure people understand the importance of getting this fixed in the next 6 months, and then they can worry about all the rest of that stuff.
Okay, Deb, I don't know if I caught that or not. You got any more questions for Laurie before we wrap things up?
I can't think of anything right off the top of my head. Is there anything you'd like to add, Laurie?
Just I'd like to thank you guys for having me here and supporting my ventures off there.
Okay.
I was I'm guardedly hopeful, like I said. I don't want to get too excited, but I feel a lot more positive and a lot more.
I think everybody
positive about definitely more positive about what's going to happen going forward for sure.
I think everybody can agree with that. This is the time of the show where we like to get our guests to highlight a website, person, place, or thing. Got anything in mind, Laurie?
Oh, our website, Medicinal Cannabis Patients Alliance of Canada, MCPACanada.org. And you can go there and see all our links and things and info at MCPACanada.org if you're interested in getting some more information. And we'll be representing going forward and lobbying in Ottawa, and hopefully we'll get, like I said, get this medicinal thing fixed to some workable level in the next 6 months, and then full-on legalization, here we come.
Here we come, that's right. That's right, here we come. Okay, Debbie, have you got a website, person, place, or thing you want to promote?
Well, I kind of like to put in an additional little pitch for MCPAC. If you go online and check out the website, keep your eyes peeled for that donate button and give Laurie a hand with her lobbying efforts in Ottawa. I know she would appreciate any help to assist with gas and parking, and it's certainly all tracked with receipts. They are a federally registered not-for-profit, so that's certainly a legal requirement of the organization to do so.
We aren't a charity, so the receipts aren't tax deductible. But yeah, if you send donations through PayPal or like an Interact donation or something to donations@mcpacanada.org, any donations we get in the next 3 months we are dedicating to lobbying efforts only. Cost me $50 just for gas and parking every time I wander in and back again. I'm going to be trying desperately to try and organize meetings on the same day. Yeah, so now that Mr. Blair knows who I am, woohoo, here I go.
There you go. All right,
now that you're on a first name basis, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Bill, what do you think, buddy?
I have to say, he's a lot taller than I thought.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I just want to throw a shout out and a thank you to everybody that was involved behind the Allard decision, John Conroy and Kirk Tusa and Jason and everybody. You know, there's been so many people that have been involved over the years. There's no way you can name them all. So I'd like to thank all those that were involved. Okay, and just a reminder to let everybody know that I will be back next Wednesday with my joint host, Kim Cooper, and her guest. I got an idea. I know who it is, but I'm not going to say. And as we continue to promote those who are fighting to bring an end to cannabis prohibition, you can find P.A.C.E on Twitter @P.A.C.E Radio, and you can also like the P.A.C.E Radio Show on Facebook. We're also found on the web at pace-online.ca, or you can find us by searching for People Advocating Cannabis Education. Thank yous go out to our sponsor, the friendly folks at BMA Hydroponics, who are located in Belleville, Ontario. Al Rapp with LifestyleRadio.ca. Also, a big thank you to our guest, Laurie MacEachern of the Medical Cannabis Patients Alliance of Canada, and my joint host, Debbie Stultz-Giffin of the Maritimers United for Medical Marijuana. Plus, a big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning into the program. Thank you, and good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, and good night.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.